I want to welcome our viewers to us Kennesaw Happenings podcast. I'm Golfer Pete, and we got a special guest, somebody that knows a lot of the ins and outs of the software engineering world. So Cameron helps us solve a lot of these problems in the AV world. And so we wanted to invite him on our show just to talk about really his sweet spot, which is software engineering. So Cameron, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are, your background, and who you serve out there, who would be a good person that would be interested in your background as a software engineer.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on this morning.
Yes.
It's my first podcast I've ever been on, so it's kind of neat experience. But yeah,
Awesome.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes.
Just wanted to, so I'm a software engineer. I mainly do website development, front end, and a little bit of back end web development. So I focus on like JavaScript based applications. Started learning programming when I was pretty young. I was like bullied a lot in school, so technology was a bit of my outlet. So that was my main focus, and I still do that. I'm a complete nerd. I do everything from hacking video games to writing websites, all kinds of stuff. So it's just my main interest.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it because I was kind of a different kind of nerd because I was terrible in academics. So I kind of went off into a path. I think we always kind of veer off based on our situation growing up. So at what age did you start getting interested in computers?
It would probably be a little bit before I was about 10 years old. Where I started was tearing apart like laptops. I remember very distinctly when I was young. We got these old, it was early 2000s. So laptops they were pretty expensive back then. I remember tearing apart like an old Dell Inspiron laptop and freaked my mom out. My mom almost had a heart attack because of it, but put it back together, got it back working again, and she was happy after that, but quite relieved. But yeah, ever since then, I've kind of done a little bit of game hacking, like Cheat Engine when I was younger, and then it kind of just went into programming. First language I learned was Python.
Okay.
So just minor scripting, which kind of just led into bigger things. When I graduated high school, for example, I never really went straight into college. I went straight into work. Started as a systems engineer for a company called the Monticello Corporation, which kind of led into some programming, and that's kind of what I do now full time and try to do all the time.
That's awesome. I know in high school we always had somebody as a go-to person, and then you were fixing a couple of our problems the other day. And so we started talking. So tell our viewers, I know with plays, there's always that AV need to make sure everything runs smoothly. And I know here at Overture, we have a bear of a time trying to get everything working. So what did you do in high school that supported what your skill set is?
High school was very interesting. So I went to North Atlanta High School, graduated in 2013, and I remember distinctly getting pulled out of class quite a bit to help with their AV department. So I was did a lot of volunteer work in the theater department, mostly focused on AV, so setting up audio, video equipment. I dealt with like 48 channel mixers, lighting boards, all kinds of things. So it was like really cool. I got pulled out of class a lot. I was kind of, I got to do what I kind of had to do. So it was like a really cool experience. And also I ended up being like just a generic kind of technical support for the teachers.
Right.
That was kind of, I get pulled out to do, hey, can you fix my computer? Or I remember also jailbreaking an art teacher's iPhone. So it was like a mix of all kinds of different things. Yeah. Get pulled out of class for
that. You don't think back then. Well, no, I don't know, but I know you wouldn't think that kind of skill set would also launch a career as a software engineer, because you're starting to figure out solutions for stuff because people bring their problems to you. What do you enjoy the solution part of it, or do you enjoy computers? What drives you as far as just your understanding, your passion for this?
A lot of it is problem solving. So I have ADHD. I've struggled with that since I was a kid. I got meningitis when I was young, and I think that's kind of affected me through my adulthood. I've just found to really enjoy solving problems. And, most of the time, computers are just a giant problem you got to solve.
Yes, and that is so true. I mean, because I'm 66, so didn't grow up with computers, and I would always have people younger to solve the problems, because when it comes to, like, you came over and we took the recordings from Zoom and you just put a pathway to Dropbox, and it was like I would agonize for days because my editor would say, "Hey, where's that such and such podcast?" I go, "I know, I'm trying to get to it," and I would of course procrastinate because it's out of my league. So, and you did it like boom, 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 and it's set. And all of a sudden, I did a couple yesterday, and I literally hit one button, done, finished. I was like, holy mackerel. I called my partner and I said, problem solved. I said, we are now ready to make a smooth transition from either the Mac or Zoom or both to be able to edit the podcast. So that solving problems is huge. And so what do you see yourself doing in the next couple of years, or what really interests you in the software engineering field?
I mainly focus on business systems. That's what I found enjoyment in. Mainly enjoyment because it is a rewarding kind of area, being able to make a business more efficient in what they do. I remember working back at a company called Wahoo Fitness when I was 19 years old is when I got that job. It was a business systems manager. So I actually developed and built out their ERP, enterprise resource planning system. So that helped their business become a little bit more efficient. I ended up moving over to NetSuite in the long term, but solving business problems is kind of something I would like to do through software.
Right. What do you see, like, being in this business since you were 10 years old and understanding that whole part? What do you see like the next 5 years? Like, it's AI is coming on strong and a lot of things like that. What do you see from your set of eyes?
The main, I think, in terms of AI, the main or the largest product that's come out, I think everyone knows about, is ChatGPT. And I definitely see, chat-based bots being able to make access to information, especially business information, a lot easier. So instead of having to ask redundant questions between employees can then just basically ask this AI essentially for business type of information. So it should make, I think, businesses more efficient in that regard. I think that's one of the soonest, I think, implementation of AI right now that's actually currently being implemented is access to like business documentation, things like that.
Do you see like, I hear both sides to AI, just what you explained, and I hear the darker side of, being able to move at a pace that disrupts the market. What do you see any disruption in as far as how it's being used out there? Not from a sense of negative, but eliminating, I think you said, like, redundant things, which is going to make businesses more efficient. Where do you see it in your training working? Is it just those repetitive questions that get asked, or what else do you see out there that you're utilizing it right now?
For me personally, I do utilize it for code when I'm programming. It's definitely a helpful, handy resource. I found myself, prior to ChatGPT or access to those types of models, but you would have to manually go and research certain topics, especially like advanced topics when you're doing any kind of development work. Being able just to go into a chat and type it in and not have to go, searching through Google has, saves a lot of time. It's not an immediate, it might be like a few minutes here, a few minutes there, but it does add up over a long period of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what about that's so cool to be able to move a little faster and make businesses more efficient. So let's go to like your hobbies. What do you like to do when you're not working? Is there anything in particular you gravitated to?
Still technology. I mean, I really enjoy building computers. So I have a custom gaming rig that I always spend a lot of time on. It's hard cooled, water cooled computer. Enjoy doing things like that. I've been very interested in like virtualization technologies, doing things like GPU pass through. I'm also interested in like low level graphics development. So using SRIOV, which is a virtualization technology with graphics cards. That's kind of my current project I'm working on, is taking a consumer level graphics card and then putting a like pro level BIOS onto it, which allows you to do certain things. So that's kind of the current project I'm working on right now, but passionate about all kinds of things. I develop all kinds of software, different types of software. One I just finished putting together that controls computer fans. So it's things like random things like that. Have a cat. He's really cool. I also enjoy like things like hiking. Try to get out as much as I can. Because at the same time, being on the computer all day just doesn't, lead to back problems and things like that. So you got to stay active.
Yeah, there's a book that one of our clients wrote called something like the I know it's around here. It's probably on my back shoulder, but it has to do with a desk jockey, because we are sitting, down, and so not being up and around. He does some exercises and stretching and things because we're leaning over at the computer, and so it does cause some issues with our body because it's not designed for certain things. Well, what do you think, like, if you had to absolutely describe your ideal system engineer position, what would you be doing, and what kind of companies would you be interested in?
In terms of like what I want to be doing, in the ideal position I'd like to be in is one where I'm constantly helping the business become more efficient in what they do through software, whether that be through ERP or just coming up with creative ways to help solve problems that take a lot of time or takes a lot of manual labor. I found I worked for a company called Bright Pipe, which was a trade show company, and they had an issue where every machine that would come in, they'd rent out basically computers to different companies, mainly pharmaceutical companies like Bayer and all of that. And when they did, they would come back and we would have to go through a refurbishment process where they would get wiped and cleaned off. And that was a manual process for them. I went in and actually automated that entire process. So instead of having to manually go computer to computer to clean it off, I scripted the entire thing and was able to automate it. Yeah. So, it saved them a lot of time. Also, they were then able to rent out a lot more computers then because it took a lot less labor to get them in and out the door. So things like that. It's just, I've been very interested in, very passionate about doing it. It's very rewarding.
Yes. I mean, when you talk about, I'm not the technology system person, but I think systems all the time too. And when you create a system, a system for your business, it just runs more efficiently. And I know with technology, we're faced with, all the different things that can be automated. And if you automate something, the time savings is incredible. So in that position, so you were actually, when you say script it, you map out the process of what code it needs to be put in place to automate that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So it was a series of things. It would boot into a custom operating system and clear off Windows and essentially reinstall it. And then after that, it would boot up and it would run a series of PowerShell scripts, which would execute on the operating system in Windows to
Mhm.
finish the setup process. So deal with things like activation, connecting to Wi-Fi, all kinds of different things that it had to do.
Awesome. What about as we wind down here? I want to give our viewers that we'll put your information in the show notes so they can get a hold of you. But just give our viewers a little bit of information how to get a hold of you if they're interested in your services and what you could provide as far as being in that system engineering field.
The quickest way to reach out to me would probably be via email. I'm also on LinkedIn and also GitHub. So if you ever want to see some of the software I've been working on or just interested in some of the projects I'm on, I would look at my GitHub page.
Awesome. That's so good. Well, I want to thank you, Cameron, for being on our podcast. I know for myself, I'm super excited about solving the problems that you solved the other day. And now knowing that I don't have to get it out of in the weeds and I can just do things that I do best and forget about the other stuff. So thank you so much for being a guest on our show. And I'll leave you with we always leave our guests with one parting thought. So what insight can you give our viewers as we wind down?
Insight. That's
maybe like the few, just give them, I love let me be a little bit more specific. So if a business is out there and the automation of that business through technology, what do you see when mainly that trade show, when you were talking about that trade show solution, how does a business benefit by putting something together that automates and takes out the manual labor, or maybe something you see in the next year or two?
My biggest tip I'd leave is just be flexible to change. Technology is constantly changing, and I think businesses need to constantly change with it. And if you don't, you're always going to be stuck in old processes that can be efficient, but at times they cannot be. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
That is awesome, because it gets more competitive every day, and if you're not looking at those systems to change and get better at your business, you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball real quick. So thank you, Cameron. I appreciate you being on here, and we'll put everything in the show notes for our viewers and for people that are interested in getting a hold of Cameron. You'll be able to easily see that in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on Kennesaw Happenings.